What do you want? Leave me alone.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Reed. I'm looking for Nurse Dorothy Crane.
There is no Dorothy Crane here. Now goodbye.
I'm afraid this medical leaflet says the opposite, sir.
Really? Well, I'm afraid I'm going to close this door right now. Go bother someone else, Mr. Doctor.
To enter that house, I must discover who this man really is. Maybe I could start by observing what he's up to. I must insist, sir. Please let me see Nurse Crane.
I have no time for you, sir.
There's no one in. I will return later.
All your problems, as long as you have the money. No match for the Swanborough cordial.
A strange man was at the door with a pass for our medical facility. I refused him entry.
Darius, how could you know he didn't need our help?
His clothes were too finely tailored to be for Whitechapel.
Perhaps just a friend of that stray poet who is always about.
Richard Nethercott? No, not of the same cloth, this man. I suspect some machination from that journalist.
Clayton Darby. Is he still asking questions?
Yes. I saw him drifting around St. Mary's Church. I swear he is tracking me just downwind.
I must talk to that journalist or the poet. They must know about Darius. Nearby the church they just mentioned.
Cheap price, good quality. Come on, take a look. Don't be afraid. Welcome, sir. Please, take a browse of my wares.
I am Dr. Reed. I would like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
Doctor? Interesting. I'm Barrett Lewis. Usually I don't have time to waste with talk, but at this hour of the night I can hardly refuse.
Right then.
Fancy Bob.
You never lose... How is business?
Business? I had no business. Between this racket, theft, and customers getting scared, I'm losing money every day.
I see. Sounds like you blame someone in particular for your situation.
It's no secret Joe Peterson spends his time harassing merchants. But with me, He's trying to put me out of business once and for all.
As a merchant, you see Whitechapel every day. Have you noticed anything out of the ordinary recently?
What you mean, besides the epidemic, the war, and all the usual crap? As long as I can remember, this part of town has been a bottomless pit, and no sign of the bottom yet.
Have you been hurt?
No, but that's only because I ran like hell. Those men were raving lunatics, I tell you. Not even able to speak anymore, just screaming.
Violence is increased?
Yeah. A few nights ago, some blokes jumped me. Came out of one of the condemned workshops. Fever. Madness.
Where did this happen?
In the closed workshops nearby. I worked there as an apprentice in better days. Now I only go to find trinkets or tools. Too bad I was mugged, though. There was good money in that little box of loot I lost.
Have you heard...
Nurse Crane. So the bitch really is a nurse, then? Always thought she was just some crafty foreigner, that one.
Yes. Those bloody immigrants should know their place, eh? How dare they do a better job than the lazy natives of this land?
Dorothy Crane ain't even a real name. Something like Dorothea Craniu. Something like that. Came to England fleeing the war, I was told.
That doesn't explain why she irritates you so much.
Your precious Nurse Crane gives away medical supplies and prescriptions for free. I offered to sell it for a fair cut, but no. Miss Crane wanted to play the quiet saint.
Goodbye for now.
I should never have taken it.
Excuse me, sir.
Another journalist? I didn't answer the first one, so piss off!
I'm not a journalist, I'm a doctor.
A doctor, you say? It's quite a rare breed in this part of town.
Really? But still, here I am. Dr. Jonathan Reed, at your service.
I'm Joe Peterson's son, but Colossus Joe to most. And I don't remember asking for your service, sir.
May I ask what you...
I do whatever I want, and sometimes even more.
How did you become the local bully everyone is afraid of, Joe?
There's no pride in roughing up poor bastards. But this is the only job I've found. And it pays well, too.
A job? So you're racketeering for someone else?
I got enlisted by the Wet Boot Boys, a gang from the docks. I'm their muscle for their dirty work.
You survive at any cost, even at the expense of others. Perhaps that's just the law of nature.
I don't care what you think, sir. I do what I have to do for my own reasons, and that's that.
I'm not sure Mr. Lewis would agree with your by all means necessary philosophy, sir.
Oh, do you really think he's the poor victim here? Barrett can be as sneaky as anyone. Long ago, I even called the bastard my best friend.
According to you, physicians are scarce in this part of town. Why is that?
Not familiar with this neighborhood, are you? I guess your fancy colleagues are too afraid of being stabbed in the back.
This part of town does have quite a reputation. Would you say it's justified?
Totally. Look at me, for instance. I always look my opponent in the eye before knocking him out.
Have you heard of a nurse named Dorothy Crane? She's a colleague of mine, and is supposed to live around here.
Dorothy Crane? Yeah, I know her. One of the few good souls who dare to help the sick around here.
Could you please tell me more about her?
She's a nice girl. Tries to help the migrants. I offered to give her a hand, but she said my reputation would attract too much attention.
Goodbye.
You again?
Goodbye. Forgive my interruption.
Do not apologize, my son. Father Tobias Whitaker is always happy to teach mortals about the incoming Armageddon.
I am Dr. Jonathan Reed, and I just have a few questions.
A scientist? You are much more lost than I thought, my son.
What do you mean?
All scientists are entangled in a world of causes and consequences, and most of them can't see the plain truth.
Quite a judgmental opinion, if you ask me. But what do I know? Blinded by science as I am.
But you are seeking answers, aren't you? Answers about the Armageddon about to strike the city. Answers about the hidden truth.
Well, I suppose I can...
As a doctor, you must be aware of the decimating epidemic. But let me tell you that this so-called Spanish flu is just the beginning of the end.
What do you mean?
The beast is finally revealing itself, corrupting the flesh and the heart of men. With my own eyes I have seen them, those minions from the abyss.
Really? And what would be your answer to this biblical threat?
We must fight the disease before this legion outnumbers us. But not with scalpels and microscopes.
What is left then?
Cleansing fire.
Tell me, Tobias, what exactly is your plan concerning the cleansing of this city?
God will recognize his own. More than once this city has risen from the ashes, hardened and purified by the flames.
Purification by fire has proved useful, but where do you stop? Burn the clothes? The buildings? The corpses? Worse?
Your lack of faith is predictable. But my task is to convince rational minds like yours to see the light. This is God's will.
You're mad and dangerous. You're nothing but a soulless butcher. A small-time Torquemada. The Savonarola of Whitechapel.
My son, if you think salvation is a free gift, go listen to the lies of that pompous fool, Joseph.
Joseph, a fool?
Vicar Larrabee of St. Mary's Church. While he continues preaching his fraudulent redemption, more and more people die in the streets.
Have you any friend?
No. But I have a disciple I see as my son. He is so devoted. I send him to preach the good word in the heart of this corrupted city.
You sent him on some...
As a true believer, Samuel will fear no evil while he walks through the valley of the shadow of death.
Where did you send?
I sent Samuel to the Stonebridge Cemetery, where the pestilence and evil grows night after night.
Do you know Nurse...
I don't like the liberal ideas of nurses, but I especially abhor that Nurse Crane.
Why do you hate...
Before coming to London, she was a member of the communist resistance in her country. That's what happens when you let a woman get involved in politics.
So, you're not exactly a...
Nuns should be the only women allowed to take care of men.
I have heard an...
Excuse me, sir. Are you familiar with this part of town? Name's Clayton Darby, reporter.
Sorry, I'm new to Whitechapel. But perhaps you could help me since you're a journalist. My name is Jonathan Reed.
Dr. Reed, the famous surgeon. I'll gladly help if I'm able, sir.
Have you any...
I've had to run and hide more than once.
I must confess, some of my rational views have been shaken by recent events.
I'll remember to stay away from the district's roughest streets then.
Why are the newspapers keeping silent about the Spanish influenza? It's as though none of you care.
There's a war going on. People shouldn't be demoralized by news of deadly diseases.
It's a disgrace. People are left to die alone. No one is properly informed of the risks.
These are bad times indeed. So much for the glorious British Empire.
What is a journalist doing?
He goes where none of his colleagues would dare to go, to inform the country.
So you risk your life to reveal the truth. I saw many reporters do the same during the war.
Whitechapel is the crucible of so many untold stories and tragedies. I want people to know them.
That's quite honorable of you.
Not at all, sir. And that's why I'm an independent journalist, hoping to sell some stories.
I heard you're investigating an underground...
Not much, I'm afraid. They are wary of strangers, and I'm not...
I'm afraid one of the nurses from the Pembroke Hospital may be involved with unsavory activities.
Ah, could it be Dorothy Crane?
Without a doubt, you are a damn fine journalist, Mr. Darby. What do you know of her accomplice, a man named Darius?
I don't know much about the man. He's very cautious. Never goes out. Doesn't seem to have any friends or family.
He never goes out?
No. A few days ago, he unexpectedly did. I followed him, but it was just a ruse to keep me away from his house.
Really? How do you know?
He went to the nearest mailbox, but just before posting his letter, he ripped it up and threw it away.
He has no
No, except for that strange man, a poet named Richard Nithercott, who sometimes comes by. Darius would never let him in.
Where can I find this Mr. Nithercott?
He spends most of his time lurking around Whitechapel, talking to himself or declaring verses. These days, you can usually find him behind the church.
Goodbye, man.
Good evening, Doc.
Do you need a...
That would be nice of you, Doctor. Who knows what I may have caught during my investigation.
If you persist in investigating them...
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.
angel made flesh, I tell you.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Reed. I would like...
Please be my guest, although I may not be the best informant regarding this part of town. My words speak about that which the eyes cannot see.
Really? Are you an...
I'm a poet, sir.
May I ask what you're doing?
Not at all. I'm just enjoying the pleasure of a quiet walk. Though night talks are always preferable, if you ask me. Especially with strangers.
But are you not a...
Oh, why should I? I see some equity in the Spanish flu. No flesh should be saved, say the scriptures. Good or evil, rich or poor, all are equal in the eyes of the flu.
If you say so. But as a physician in a time of epidemic, I must caution you to avoid unnecessary exposure, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. But we both know the seeker of truth has to go boldly where the weak dare not.
Are you aware that you're...
But this is where I must be to feel the real beat of the city. I had to come, see it for myself, alone.
If some misfortune...
Well, you for a start, my dear Doctor.
I understand you're...
I don't care. I don't have many friends.
What are your thoughts?
Terrible, you say? No. Of course.
What are you talking about?
Do you remember London before the flu? Noisy, cacophonic, quiet nowhere to be found. And now, listen to...
Yes. The enjoyable silence of the grave. You have a unique perspective on the situation, I must admit.
Most people fail to understand my perspective. I don't blame them. But how could I call myself a poet if I veiled my feelings?
Tell me, Mr. Nethercott.
The place is not beautiful per se, but how to explain it? Stirring and challenging.
Do you not...
On the contrary, sir. Whitechapel is full of life, full of beauty. Just like my dear muse, the wonderful Camellia.
What can you tell me about Camellia?
Not much. And that's the beauty of it. She can't speak, you know. She's a locked mystery who exhales kindness and sweetness.
And have you ever tried to learn more about her? Where she lives? How she survives? Whom she may know?
Maybe I prefer she remains an enigma. Reality can be so dull, don't you think?
Perhaps you're just afraid to find out the truth about your muse.
One day, perhaps, I'll ask her to come with me. But will she still be my wild flower of Whitechapel if she moves uptown?
In what way, exactly?
The struggle by gaslight, the barren smiles and the arid hunger under the rain.
If you say so.
Such vibrant antagonism and vivid paradox, the stripped humanity raged across each street.
Vivid, of course, yes. And what about the poignant distress?
Oh yes, the poignant distress. You see what I mean, don't you? That's what I want to write about, and that's what Whitechapel is made of.
May I ask you a few questions about the district?
Extraordinary part of town, is it not? I'll be glad to help you, if I can.
I'm looking for Dorothy Crane.
Dorothy Crane. Oh, I love the name. The Crane of Whitechapel. Sounds very mysterious. But, sorry, no, never heard of her.
What can you tell me about an old man called Darius?
Darius Petrescu? Yes, I know him. At first, I thought he was only a small publisher. I invited him to publish my work, but his reaction was pretty clear.
Not interested in your talent?
Darius is an old political activist who takes delight in printing tracts and lampoons. Those communist activities only require mediocre writing skills.
Do you need medical attention?
It may be wise to let you prescribe.
I understand your appetite for words and macabre beauty, sir. But you should be more careful.
The nutrition of my mind is more important than my physical health. But I appreciate your concern, sir.
I'll leave you alone.
Some of us come to this world already touched by grace. Oh, Camellia, the silent
Good evening, miss. I'm Dr. I know what you're thinking. A tall stranger who meets a girl in the street at night. It reeks of the penny dreadfuls. But I mean you no harm, truly. Tell me about Richard Nethercott. I understand he is quite fond of you, Camellia.